This is a very serious family conflict that came up recently. I was away from home most of the time when my then only son was a toddler. I discovered by accident that he wasn't mine. He was my older brother's son. It was the most devastating time in my life, aside from what I was dealing with. My ex-wife and I ended up divorcing, and I cut contact with my brother for years. I was done with him. Even after my ex-wife, who we married the same year of the divorce, died suddenly, my parents thought my ex's death was supposed to make everything okay, as they claimed she was the one who drove a wedge between my brother and me. But I kept my distance. I am David. My age is 46, and I am a former military serviceman navigating a tumultuous family revelation with resilience and introspection. My nephew started reaching out to me, and we began seeing each other more often when he was a teen. He has always been told that the fight between my brother and me was about business. My parents threatened to disown me if I told my nephew that his mother was my ex, and that I should just leave it alone, which I did since they said they'd pick their nephew/grandson if they had to choose. My nephew tried to get me to meet my brother to talk since my brother welcomed the idea, but I refused. Finally, I made it clear to him that he needed to stop forcing a reunion, and he respected my wishes. He's now 21 and is getting married soon. He sent an invitation, which I declined and returned right away. He called to ask why, and I said I had no contact with his dad, so I wouldn't come since he'd be there. My nephew refused to accept that and came over and started criticizing me, saying I was unnecessarily bitter and resentful towards his apologetic dad over some business. He could not believe how much hate and grudge I kept inside me against his dad. He said I either try to work things out with his dad or he will not be seeing me again. I felt hesitant at first, but then told him his dad and I don't have a usual beef and that his mother was my ex-wife, who his dad messed around with while I was in the military. My nephew denied it, saying his dad and grandparents never told him that. He thought I was lying until I showed him enough proof to get him to change his tone. He left in a hurry and was enraged. I later found out via my parents that my nephew canceled all my family's wedding invitations. He put the wedding on hold, disappeared after a huge argument with them, and disowned his dad. My father has gotten very sick after this incident, and my entire family keeps harassing me, saying I ruined everyone's life with what I did because of my hate and resentment towards my brother. They said they wanted me not to talk, and now I should deal with the consequences of alienating their grandson and slashing their nephew from them. Not the idiot. Your nephew is an adult fully capable of making his own choices. You were pressed for an answer. Your options were to no longer have your nephew in your life, meet up with your brother, or tell him the truth. Your family threatening to disown you for telling your nephew the truth is super toxic. I can understand not telling him when he was a child and even to a certain extent as a teen. But once your nephew was an adult, he deserved to know. Not only that, but you have been painted as the argumentative idiot in favor of the cheating brother and ex. Holy cow. How do you do that to a man whom both his wife and his sibling betrayed? For 20 years, he held his tongue despite his whole family, parents included, behaving like this. Not the idiot. Your family is delusional if they thought they could keep it a secret forever. If they had not tried to keep it secret and your nephew had grown up knowing the truth, he might not have blown up the way he did. He blew up because he realized that his family had lied to him his entire life. You tried not to say anything, but your nephew was like a dog with a bone, and he would not let up, pressuring you for an answer. He couldn't handle this information if he canceled his wedding and disappeared. You are not the idiot, but in a way your parents are right, and you should deal with the consequences of your actions. Reach out to your nephew and tell him that you love him. You never blamed him for what his parents did, and that you never told him before because you were told that you would never be allowed to see him again if you didn't explain that already. Importantly, let him know that you will always be there for him if he ever needs you. I, a 23-year-old female, have been with my boyfriend, also 23, for around a year and a bit. In the time that I've known him, he has never really talked about his feelings about things other than our relationship, and he has always been reserved in a sense when it comes to that. Whereas I would talk a lot about my feelings regarding almost anything so that I'm thankful for. He's always been a great listener. This weekend I was over at his place when he was in the shower. I was sitting on the sofa and realized that he left his phone there unlocked. I know I shouldn't have done this, and I don't know what came over me, but I decided to look through his phone quickly. I went on to his notes app, and it seemed like he used it as a diary of sorts. He started writing these entries when his ex had broken up with him about 2 years ago. I knew of the relationship, but I didn't know much about the circumstances surrounding it. It almost felt like he was talking to her through the entries, with plenty of questions, talking about his feelings, and convincing himself to be okay with letting her go. It seemed that he kept writing it during our relationship as well. There were entries about his grievances with his parents and relatives and about meeting me in our relationship. I understand that some people keep notes on things, but honestly, I felt a little bit betrayed. He has never told me any of these things, and it's like there was a whole different side to him that I just never knew about. I really wouldn't mind if you wanted to talk to me about these things because I am his girlfriend. I should be able to support him and help him if needed. I started crying because many of the things he wrote, particularly revolving around his ex and his parents, were quite sad. When my boyfriend came out of the shower, he asked me if I was okay and what was going on, to which I asked him, "Why have you not told me any of this stuff?" He asked what I was talking about, and I told him that I read through his notes. His expression instantly shifted into one of anger, and he asked me why did I think I had the right to read through all those things. I was still in tears at this point, and I said that this wouldn't be a problem if he was just more open with me and we talked about it, that he doesn't have to bottle it all up by writing in his notes instead. He got even angrier and asked me to leave. Honestly, I feel terrible. I feel like I've betrayed his trust massively, but at the same time, I do wish he would be more open with me when it comes to these things. I truly believe that if he was, then this would have never been an issue in the first place. So am I the idiot for feeling betrayed after reading my boyfriend's notes? You know you are the idiot, a big, giant, selfish one. And you're upset because he did something healthy and wrote down his feelings, especially before meeting you? He needs to get your butt out of his life. Snooping on the phone is bad enough, but reading his diary and then behaving as if he is the bad guy because he never talked to her about it? Wow, this woman knows no boundaries. You are such an idiot, it makes me speechless. You would also search the diary of your child and read it without any remorse. Maybe even scan some pages and put them on your Facebook. I hope this man will never see you again for feeling betrayed. Yikes, you are the idiot for violating his privacy big time. So you're upset he engaged in a time-honored and healthy way of expressing his feelings and emotions, and you just couldn't help yourself and decided to snoop. His next entry should be, "Why did I ever trust you, and I'm glad we broke up?" I was having trouble wrapping my head around that too. Like, you read his diary without permission, and then had the nerve to start crying and feeling betrayed. And then, instead of rightfully being ashamed, you confront him about his betrayal? She betrayed her boyfriend so much. I hope his next entry is exactly what you said. I, a 22-year-old male, live in an apartment with my roommate, also 22 and male. We are both attending college part-time and get along well with one another. The lease is under my name only. My roommate is not planning on living in the apartment after college. I do work the night shift 3 days a week. My hours are 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. He sometimes has his girlfriend stay overnight, which is no problem, as my boyfriend will stay when he visits. When I came home from work, I noticed my bed had been a mess, and I found clothing that did not belong to me in the sheets. I am awful with confronting people, but I know it's not my boyfriend, as he lets me know beforehand when he is staying over. So I ordered a camera and placed it in a spot where it couldn't be seen. I went to work and the camera app notified me that there was motion in the room. I turned the camera on and saw my roommate and his girlfriend on my bed. I was mortified and stopped watching the video. My boyfriend came over in the morning, and I showed him the video of my roommate and girlfriend on my bed. Then my boyfriend texts the video to my roommate, and he texts back that he wants to talk when he gets home. My roommate and I talk about the situation, and I tell him that it's disgusting that he and his girlfriend are using my bed. The roommate's defense is that the bed is more comfortable than his. His girlfriend comes over in the evening and she starts attacking me for putting a camera in the apartment. Am I the idiot for putting a camera in my bedroom? Not the idiot. You have a camera in your space. If they are being caught on your camera in your space where they should not be, then that's on them. Who cares if your bed is more comfortable? It is not theirs. They are disgusting. Not the idiot. He's not on the lease. Give him a 30-day vacation letter. I would not want to live with anyone who violates my space like that. I would also double down and put more cameras in the apartment. And your roommate's excuse is completely invalid. He and his girlfriend are only upset at the camera you placed in your bedroom because they got caught. Not the idiot for putting up a camera, but illegal to send your boyfriend the video. If they did what I think you're implying, it's one thing to show them briefly, but if your roommate and his girlfriend wanted to take action against you for distributing a video of them doing, You know what? Without their consent, they could. So just be careful. Even if you only sent it to him so he could send it to your roommate, it doesn't matter in the court of law. It's distribution whether he watched it or not. It's your private space, so you can do whatever you want in it. Again, it's your private space, so what are they doing entering your room without permission? It would help if you locked your door before leaving and made it clear that what they were doing was inappropriate. They are in the wrong here, not you. My family, myself, wife, and son, are neighbors with my in-laws, sister-in-law, husband, and 2 daughters. Recently, my wife and her sister have been setting up playdates between our son and their youngest daughter at our place as part of childhood socialization. In addition, they are similar in age. I was a little apprehensive at first. They have vastly different parenting methods like heavy screen time to coax their kids into eating and letting their domestic helpers clean up extensively after them. We have a helper ourselves, but we instruct her to guide our son into cleaning up his toys and food mess rather than spoon-feeding him. Their eldest daughter is a recurring reminder to me not to parent our son that way, as I find her an extremely spoiled brat. During one of these playdates, I was at home, and I saw that after they finished playing with a set of toys, she, my son's cousin, moved on to another set without putting them away. My son was in the process of putting these toys away when she told him to leave them and come over. I stepped in at this point and told both of them they would have to pick up their toys before moving on to another set. She said that the helper would help them clean up and refused to do so. I said that if that was the case, playtime was over. She ignored me and went on to the next set of toys, which I took away from her and let her out of the playroom. I told her that if she wanted to continue playing, she needed to apologize and pick up the first toys. She kicked up a big fuss and started bawling, and I sent her back to her place. A few hours later, my sister-in-law came down and demanded to know why I was so mean to her daughter. I explained my stance, and she insisted that I could have just let our helper clean up. Just this once. Our son is very impressionable, so I refused to budge on this in our own home. She said that she could send her helper with their daughter to clean up after her if that would be such a big problem. And I also found out that for the previous playdates, our helpers simply cleaned up after them. I said I didn't want them to send their daughter over again, and she told me that I was sticking my nose in their parenting affairs. I told her that it was none of my business, but once they stepped into my house, it was my rule. My wife is on the fence about this. On the one hand, she thinks we have to stick to our principles, but wonders if it was worth souring a relationship over what seemed like a trivial incident. Am I the idiot for putting my foot down? Not the idiot. Your wife is on the fence because that's her sister, so you're the only one seeing clearly at this point. You're doing your niece a favor by teaching her that different households/people have different rules. Unfortunately, her mother isn't doing her any favors by letting her get away with her behavior. Not the idiot. And so much to the point that you're teaching your kid the rules. Letting the brat next door break the rules, especially suspending the rules because the brat doesn't like them, is teaching your kid all the wrong lessons. I'm not even going to start on the idea of letting your in-laws staff come over to clean up after the brat. That's just wild. Your niece will be in for a rude awakening when she goes to school, and there is no helper to clean up after her, and her teacher forces her to clean up after herself. Your son, however, understands the importance of cleaning up after himself, and that should continue. Your sister-in-law is doing a huge disservice to her kids by not teaching them basic life skills. I'm assuming you are a little wealthy because you have helpers. So in that case, do everything you possibly can to make sure they're not spoiled. I swear you're not wrong. It will help your son later in life more than he could thank you. My daughter, an 18-year-old female, started working full-time in June because she has no plans of going to college. She makes $14 an hour, and her paycheck is a little over $900 every 2 weeks. We originally had her chip in $150 every month for her car insurance and $50 for her phone bill, so $200 every month. However, she's been lying to us about where the money is going, and we haven't gotten a payment from her since the beginning of September. She says she forgot to clock in and didn't get paid. The money got stolen from her bank account. She has no idea what the money is and why she never got a paycheck. Just all these excuses not to pay us. However, I think I figured out where her money has been going. She's been buying all these Bratz dolls with her money. I went into her room today because she borrowed an outfit of mine and never gave it back. I found all these Bratz playsets, makeover heads, dolls, cars, party buses, planes, room decor, etc. that she didn't have before. 3 boxes showed up at the door this morning in her name, and one has Bratz stickers all over the outside of it. I don't care if she wants to buy Bratz dolls. However, she is missing her monthly payments and lying about it, which makes me so mad. My husband thinks we need to charge her rent, and she doesn't need to spend all her money on dolls. I honestly agree, it's ridiculous. He thinks we should charge her $300 for rent instead of the $200 she already owes us. She also doesn't do chores around the house anymore because she's 18 and thinks she doesn't have to listen to us. It's a constant fight to get her to do anything, and she mouths off a lot, talking back, swearing, screaming, etc. I'm honestly getting sick of her behavior and the lying. Not the idiot, I would support my child through college or any career path, such as a union apprenticeship. But I will never allow my child to sit at home for free, working a dead-end job and not getting anywhere in life. In my opinion, if you don't charge your rent, then you're the idiot. She needs to grow up and get a taste of reality. First, why is an 18-year-old buying Bratz dolls? Second, not the idiot for charging her rent. She's an adult with a job and doesn't contribute to the home she lives in any other way. If she doesn't want to pay you, she can move out and deal with the real world. Not the idiot, but charging rent is not the way to fix this. You need to get her to take on the $200 responsibility first, because if she's not paying that now, then no way adding rent on top of it will get her to pay. You're already very generous in letting her stay with you. Sit down and make it clear to her that she'll need to move out the next time she misses a payment. You owe it to her to teach her that responsibility before she enters the real world. She also needs to pitch in with the chores. She's living in a shared home and needs to do her part. Do not do her laundry for her or clean up her room or anything like that. She's 18 and needs to learn responsibility, not play with dolls. Not the idiot. Sounds reasonable. She will need to get her own car insurance and phone someday, and pay the bill on time, rent too. But I'm weirded out by the many comments here. An 18-year-old collecting Bratz dolls is no different than adults liking Pokemon, Lego, or video games. It's just a hobby. Let's conclude the story shortly. In each of these scenarios, the "Am I the Idiot" posters were facing difficult situations and complex emotions. They were grappling with betrayal, hurt feelings, and the desire for fairness and respect. While some decisions, like snooping through a boyfriend's phone, were clear missteps, others, like setting boundaries for a niece's behavior or expecting an adult child to contribute financially, were entirely reasonable. Ultimately, these stories highlight the importance of open communication, respecting boundaries, and taking responsibility for our actions. They remind us that navigating family and relationships can be messy, and sometimes, even with the best intentions, we make mistakes. However, by seeking to understand different perspectives and striving for empathy, we can learn from these challenges and hopefully build stronger, healthier relationships. How did the story resonate with you? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay blessed. Thank you for watching.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. "Still here?" Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. "I'm leaving." I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick, what's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. "Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize." Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. "What kind of training are you giving your subordinates?" Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed, I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry." Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." "Mike, what have you done?" Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself. This could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.